You are tuning in to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Carlos Sanchez. This is the Hispanic Chamber Connection radio program, live radio for the members of the Woodlands-Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, where you don't have to be Hispanic to be a member. You only have to be interested, you have to be positive, and you have to just show up, and we'll do the rest. We have a great show program for you today. We have someone who's extremely interesting. I think all of you listening will get a kick out of everything you're going to learn today because he is a very versatile person. He comes to us from St. Louis, but he's now a native resident of the Houston area. He also is beginning to use our language. So I think I read around somewhere that he said y'all for the first time the other day in a real sentence. So Rick Demko, thank you for being on the show, Rick.
Pleasure's mine.
All right, so you know, I'm a little distracted. I took a picture and I sent it to a friend of mine, and it's a terrible picture. Do you know how to remove a picture from Instagram or from just Facebook? What do I need to do to get rid of this thing?
Facebook I could probably help you with, but...
Well, take a look at that. In the meantime, I'll say some things, and you can look at that and see if you can just get rid of it so that she will look at it once and not have to look at it ever again or hold it over my head.
I'll work on my y'alls while you're doing that.
So something important, when you do take pictures of things and post them on Facebook, make sure you look at them first before you post them, and also make sure that you run them through a filter. That filter should be your better judgment, and because this picture, of course, was not a good one, and now I'm going to have to worry about it. Hopefully, Rick can save the day. Anyway, we have a great show, as I was saying. We have some things planned for you. First, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on at the Chamber of Commerce and what it takes to become a member. One of the biggest questions people ask, and I've already answered it, is that you don't have to be Hispanic to join. But also, what are some of the benefits? I think Rick was successful. Did it work? Is it gone?
Not from the text message you sent, but well, I did not see it on Facebook or Instagram, so I think you're okay.
Okay, so my text is the one that's messed up, and all right. Well, we'll fix that, and if not, I'll just tell her, look, I was looking the other way. I was distracted. I was nervous. I think she already responded with yeah, she did. She said it's nice. So
just blame it on me.
So she's being very sweet. Thank you, Irma. And well, that's not me, as you can see. It's obviously not me. Anyway, so we're talking today about what's going on at the Chamber. What does it take to become a member of the Chamber? What are some benefits of the Chamber? Then we're going to talk a little bit about final wishes insurance and what is it? Why does that matter? What is that? How does that work? And of course, we have an expert here that's going to explain to us why it's possible that having pre-existing conditions, and other things that most carriers reject, he can actually help you with. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Then we're going to talk more about a little segment that we call Ask a Chicanro. A Chicanro is a person who was born and raised in the great city of Conroe and understands Hispanic culture. So we basically come up with different segments or different topics regarding the Hispanic culture and how they apply to Americans born and raised here who just sometimes don't understand Hispanic culture. So we'll discuss that for a few minutes a little bit later. But first, Rick, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on at the Chamber.
Sure, please.
One of the biggest things that we have up here in Conroe is a monthly luncheon. We basically invite as many people as we can, and we go to a place called Chocolate Passion. Ever been?
I haven't, but it sounds delicious.
Okay. Well, it is. It's Sulai Quinn is the owner, and she is South American, and her husband's American.
Okay.
And basically, they have a secret formula for making chocolate. So what they do is that they have catering as part of their business. They serve food. So they make lunch for us, and about 20 people show up every month on behalf of the Chamber, and we sit and just talk, right? So it's networking and it's things like that we do there. So that's monthly, and tomorrow's the 1 month anniversary, which means we're there tomorrow. So at 11:30 at this place called Chocolate Passion, we have lunch on behalf of the Woodlands-Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Then on Thursday,
I will be there actually.
You're looking at your
at my calendar. It's on my calendar for tomorrow, so I will be there.
So that's something interesting for y'all listeners. You don't always have to know what's going on, but if your calendar knows, then you got it. So thank you, Rick. So we'll see you there tomorrow for sure. So that's going on tomorrow. Then on Thursday, we have something in a different part of town, which was very exciting for us. That's Vintage Park. In the Vintage Park area, we go to a place called Spring Creek Barbecue. And there we have about 20 to 30 members show up. and we have lunch. Again, the whole point of these meetings is to have smaller, interactive networking meetings where people can actually talk about their business without having to, experience what happens when you go to larger groups, which is always something interesting because the energy gets so fast. People tend to get really excited in the bigger groups. Mm-hmm. They begin to lie a lot more, because they put on a different face. Now I have to show 150 people, 20 people that I'm successful. And so they start saying things that sometimes are not real honest or real true. Sure. It's harder to connect in larger groups. So we understand that. We do like large groups by all means, but we encourage small because we know what it takes to do business is just two people, sure, not necessarily large groups. So anyway, on Thursday we're at Spring Creek Barbecue. So if you like barbecue, there you go. We'll have that for you. On Thursday evening, a company called Carrington International. They are a benefits company, and they'll be having a ribbon cutting at the chamber offices. A lady by the name of Irma Banda, who is one of their vice presidents, and she'll be the one hosting that event. So that's Thursday night at the chamber offices here in the Woodlands. On Friday, we have Cafe Contigo. That's a monthly event, breakfast. You've been to that one, Rick.
I have.
At Natalitas at the same restaurant.
In fact, I think I joined the chamber because of that meeting.
I remember. You were under the influence of huevos rancheros. And we got you there. I mean, you signed up, and it was very exciting to see you sign up. But what made you want to sign up at that event, Rick?
So the name that you allude to with this chamber idea, it really doesn't feel like a chamber. Mm-hmm. It's much more than that. It's when I go to a chamber event, and this is just my perspective, of course, it's the pass your business card around sort of a deal, and nothing worse than getting a plethora of phone calls or emails afterwards. And this was quite a bit different. The relationships were sincere, really visiting with each other and trying to figure out what we can do to make introductions. It was just a different style of networking. And I think a lot of that had to do with your format and really presiding, if you will, over the meeting. We all got a chance to speak, which took a lot of pressure off of trying to speak to everybody.
Sure.
Being able to identify the few folks that really you need to make sure that you have a connection with before you leave.
Right.
Just seeing the energy in the room. Plus, we'll get into it a little bit more, but the market that I work in, the Hispanic market, severely under supported. So that's why I wanted to get involved with your group specifically.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's much of what you're saying is actually the reason we started the chamber, because and people that have heard me or have listened to the show understand and realize this is my story for this chambers. I did go to other chambers of commerce, and they didn't pay attention to small business. I didn't feel like I was getting any kind of service for the amount of money I was paying, and I didn't like that. And I thought, okay, so I have to affect change. And I remember going down the elevator. I was on a 20-something floor downtown at a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which will remain nameless, but it's the Houston one. On my way down on the elevator ride, I said to myself, I'm just going to start my own thing. I stood in the lobby for 45 minutes. Nobody paid attention to me. They were having some sort of event inside, and nobody would come out and talk to me. One girl did, look at me, and she kind of smiled, but didn't really respond to any of my questions. Just basically said, "Wait here," and because that being one of the only forms of Chamber of Commerce that are out there, I said I'm just going to start a small one in different cities and really overcome that whole issue of having to go to an ivory tower somewhere, and so that's why this whole thing started. So anyway, I'm hoping that it's having the right effect. So anyway, so we said Friday morning, breakfast, 8:30 to 10:30 at Natalitas, which is on Sawdust. It's right up here in North Houston, Sawdust and 45. It's easy to find. Natalitas used to be called Casa Imperial. Casa Imperial. All right, so that's Friday. On Monday, next Monday, this is something we do every Monday, and that's focus motivation. People come to the chamber office. If you're a member, and if you're not a member, you just want to check us out, come to the office, and we'll talk to you about your business. We'll talk to you about your marketing, especially your marketing. Rick, I've realized so many people go into business and have no idea about marketing, And there are people in business that hate marketing. I've heard that too. Like, they'll tell you, I hate marketing. And I always tell them, it's like needing to breathe and you hating oxygen. You know what I mean? Because marketing is your oxygen without doing something. What's your opinion on that, Rick? I mean, what's been your experience early on? Because I know now you're pretty fluent in the marketing area. But before, when you first started, what was your take on marketing?
Well, it's tough to have a business without sales. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to get sales without marketing?
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a chicken and the egg kind of a conversation here that we could actually have between marketing and sales.
Mm-hmm.
And, marketing is not going to exist without the budget from sales. And how are you going to get in front of people without the marketing? I think it's important to get your name out there, and however that is.
Right.
Now we live in such a pretty neat age, but with social media, we've been accessing those platforms as we've been talking here.
Absolutely.
Makes it very easy for folks to be accessible.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a small business, then having a presence on there is certainly important, but also interacting with other folks outside of your own organization to get an idea of what's working. Where are the events that I need to be at, where I can meet this particular type of person? So it's a shotgun blast versus a sniper, and being able to really focus in on the type of person you want to interact with, and hopefully use that to leverage your business and to grow.
Sure.
So marketing's critical.
Right. Without marketing, and that's the biggest thing, is if you understand just the concept of marketing, because we have training on marketing with everybody that joins the chamber. We always run them through a 25-point, sort of audit, just to figure out where they are and how we can help them. And it's almost invariable, even if they are nonprofits, no matter what they are, if they don't have a marketing plan or some sort of idea of what this means, then they're having problems.
Sure.
Because what a marketing plan does for you is it gives you intention. You have to go out to the marketplace first and be liked. You have to show up okay with people. You have to have a personality, so to speak.
Sure.
And that's the first step, is attraction. You have to attract people somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Then after you interact with them a little bit, you have to find out if they're interested in you.
Sure.
Right? If they're interested in your service and your business, et cetera, then you can talk about selling. But without attraction, without that whole front end piece, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people show up to the market homely, upset, ugly, and angry, guess what? You're not going to get any business. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're not going to last long.
Well, even if you hire people, a PR agency, which is marketing, a form of marketing, or if you hire a sales guy, if you don't have that capability of empathy with people, it will hurt you at some point.
Sure.
So anyway, all right. So that's our piece on marketing. We talk about that, and we're very straightforward about it with our Monday meetings, because the meetings tend to be more like a mastermind meeting, more of a sit down and feedback type. If people bring us issues of sales or issues with people they want to meet or things like that, then we discuss that. Our whole point as a Chamber of Commerce is to make those connections, or to help you make those connections. So if there's someone that you want to meet and you're a member of this chamber, look at the directory and tell me who you want to meet, and I'll facilitate an introduction, no problem. As long as you have something to sell. That's another thing. We've had folks want to sell certain items to presidents of companies, and that doesn't work.
Sure.
You do want to. I would always ask you, okay, how is this going to help the company you're going to call? And if you can't make a case for it, then you're not going to make a case with the CEO, or someone in that company. So I'd rather save you and everyone else the time.
Mm-hmm.
But for sure we facilitate that whenever possible. All right, so those are the things going on at the chamber. Rick, what kind of things are you going to be doing with us? Are you going to be showing up to, you said already, tomorrow's lunch for sure?
Yeah, first of all, happy birthday, young man.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Smooth looking 35 years young.
35?
Yeah, I've got a couple chamber events looking at my calendar now. So that's kind of my thing. And thankfully, you send out the calendar of events at the beginning of the month, so I can pick and choose what is going to fit my week best. And it looks like I'm going to be with you tomorrow at the Conroe monthly lunch, and then I'm also planning on being at the Vintage Park event Thursday for lunch.
The Vintage Park event, I know it's a very good event, because it combines a lot of different groups, different people, and that's something else, is that the Woodlands has a good amount of events. You can network a lot in the Woodlands, and that's great. But if you go south of a few major avenues, then there's nothing. On 2920 or south of that, 1960, you get less and less groups.
Yeah, selfishly, my office is off of 1960 West, so it's that Vintage Park.
It's right there.
Gives me an excuse to leave the office for a little bit for lunch.
Sure,
so.
Get some barbecue.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, the people that show up there, like I said, are close by there, but some of those folks are part of our chamber and joined in the Woodlands because they had nowhere else to go. Right. So now that's why we expanded down to Vintage Park, aside from some other wonderful reasons.
Or some folks travel. Sure. I get around pretty well. I drive 35,000 miles a year, just probably in the Houston area.
Yeah.
And being able to branch out to the same group, just with a different venue, whether it's Houston or or another part of town is a benefit to me as well.
35,000 miles?
Shamefully, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm trying not to travel as much as I used to.
So if you rented or leased a car,
I
they
can't
said
lease
it's
a car.
10,000 miles.
There's no way.
crazy.
Yeah, I think they do 25 cents a mile for overage. So I've got 200,000 miles on my car and hoping to get another 100,000 on it. We'll
Just
see.
squeezing the car until it's dead. And that's actually a big Hispanic thing. We'll talk about that later. that we do tend to, hold on to our cars even when you're not supposed to. Even when it's almost illegal to have the car. Because back home, that's all we do. We buy one car for your entire life almost. You don't buy cars like we do here in America. It's once every 2 years or something.
Yeah.
Back home, it's you got your car, you fix it, you make it work.
Right.
Which is just a different form of thinking. Okay, so let's talk about something else then, because I did want to say that this week is National EMS Week. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I had lunch with Chris Way, who's a first responder.
I know Chris.
And he's a good guy. He's Cook Insurance,
Sure.
right?
Uh-huh.
And he said to me, make sure you mention that it's First Responders Week. Like, okay,
Yeah.
and it's a big deal.
And I understand we've got Cypress Creek EMS has recently been nationally recognized as well. So props to them.
Yeah, they're a great group of guys. The way we're involved with the first responding community is through Emergency Chaplain Ministries. They were here a few weeks ago, and for us, it's a huge benefit to first responders what they do. Taking care of first responders is so difficult because nobody pays attention. The massacre that just occurred in England, it was even in the news. That it's so difficult for everyone to deal with that, but how much more difficult is it for the first responders there?
Sure.
To pick up kids and all those.
Sure. Yeah, and as a father, I can't imagine having those images still weighing on my mind and trying to lay down to rest to go to bed.
Right.
Before I start my next day and trying to, those first responders, who are they going to communicate that stuff to? They don't want to project that same image onto their spouse
right.
or their families. So you hold that in,
right.
And what good is going to come from that?
Mm-hmm. And it's known that no good comes from that. So
that's
why the Emergency Chaplain Ministries is so valuable. We're talking with Rick Demko with the Guardian Group. He's going to talk to us a little bit more about last or final wishes insurance and things like that when we come back. So we'll be back in just a few minutes, and we'll be right back.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. Broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
And we're back. We're back with Rick Demko from the Guardian Group. This is one of my more interesting interviews this month for sure, because most people don't like to discuss final wishes, or they don't like to talk about the departure to the next realm of our family members, our loved ones, et cetera, et cetera. Yet we all know that this is a reality. This is an inevitable part of life. And why make it so difficult for us? If it's part of life, then we shouldn't be so put off by talking about these things. But Rick, you have found that people treat final wishes as taboo. Is that correct, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few truths in life, and really they say that I'm not a CPA, okay? So they said there are two certainties in life: death and taxes. So unfortunately, I'm here to talk about death. Where everyone's going to die someday.
Sure.
I think, if anything, probably to a fault, I'm almost too candid when it comes to this conversation. But the way that I sit down with my clients and also my agents around the country, I do it in a way so if we head this off, we plan for it, it's uncomfortable, but you deal with it, you don't have to worry about it again.
Okay. So Rick Demko with the Guardian Group. Tell us, Rick, what is it specifically then that you're dedicated to? What kind of work do you do with people? Who calls upon you? Go ahead and elaborate, please, if you would.
So the Guardian Group is a final wishes agency, is how I like to talk about it. It's a final expense life insurance agency. But there's more to it than just providing a check when a loved one passes away. When each of us die, at that point, what's the next step? There's so much more involved than here's a check. So helping the family through that process, understanding that there's some things that legally you don't have to do. So just understanding a couple of those laws can often save families thousands of dollars.
So, Rick, when a loved one dies, for instance, and we have your insurance, we're covered with your agency, do you help us with funeral arrangements and things like that?
Yeah, we certainly can. So I'd like to use products as well as other companies, because at some point I'm going to die, and hopefully not for a long time. I'm sure my bride and my son would appreciate it if I stick around for a few more years. But it's going to happen someday. So I like to pair everything with another entity. But if push comes to shove, if someone contacts me and they're asking for help after someone passed away, it's easier for me to help you while you're still alive than when after you've passed. So if I can talk to you beforehand, that means we can put a plan in place, and that can, not just financially, I talk about the funding and the planning. But the funding, the money part is simply a piece of it, but also having a plan and an idea of what folks want, it saves a lot of headache. You don't want to be making certain decisions on that day.
So what's the average cost, Rick, of a funeral? What would you say?
Depends who you ask. I know what the national average is. It's $10,500 about nationwide. Here in Texas, it's probably about that, if not maybe even about $10,000.
And I've heard that cremation is cheaper.
So it can be. I'll tell you a very brief story about a young lady that I met maybe 2.5 years ago in Huntsville, Texas, not far from here. And at the time she was 84. She told me that she lost her husband 12 years prior. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, tell me about that experience. And she said, well, it was great. It didn't cost her a penny. It didn't cost her a thing. I said, you must have had some life insurance. She said, yeah, I did. I said, well, so how much of that money did you get back from that life insurance? She said, well, nothing, but it was great because the funeral director took care of everything. It was wonderful. I said, great. If you don't mind me asking, how much was that insurance policy? She said, well, it was $20,000. I said, wow, that must have been one heck of a nice burial. She said, no, he was cremated.
Okay.
So a $20,000 cremation. Now, the national average for a cremation is about $3,500. Okay, but it depends who you ask. There's a large shop here in town. I won't mention a name, but if you go to any of their shops, what they will tell you is that the average cost is between $12,000 and $15,000.
And it's a big deal.
Burial.
It's a big deal in Hispanic culture that forever the Mexican government and other governments have been trying to instill upon the members of these nations that they should be cremated, because everybody tries to send the bodies back home.
Sure.
But we don't like cremation. So as a Hispanic culture, they prefer non-cremation. They prefer the body, and so even if it is cheaper, sometimes they need, as you've said, they're underserved and they're undereducated as well.
Very much so, and the money is a big part of it. Okay, so the reason why a lot of folks are getting cremated, it's not because it's trend and in vogue. It's because, frankly, it's easier to come up with $1,500 than it is $15,000.
Of course.
And with the Hispanic culture, for instance, if somebody wants to go to Mexico, everything's negotiable on this side of the border. So, and you certainly know that south of the border, you're looking at possibly using cash to pay for bribes in order to transport somebody. That stuff happens. I can help a family all the way to the border, and hopefully giving them the ability and the finances in order to help make the rest of the process more fluid.
So that's part of what you do then?
Try to, yeah.
But you also work with life insurance?
Life insurance is a big part of it. I like having a vehicle that's going to provide somebody the ability to pay for the plans that we put in place. So getting an idea of where someone is health-wise is going to tell me kind of the path that we need to go. Now, I can firmly say that from the age of 2 weeks to the age of 85, there's no one that I cannot help with a financial product. Just last week, I had somebody who said, why don't I just put $15,000 into a savings account so that way when I die, that money's going to be made available. So that sounds great on paper, but how much have you saved so far?
Sure.
And you know what the answer was? The answer was zilch. It was nothing, nada. So that's fine if you want to start saving now, but if you were to die yesterday, that means that the family would still be with $0.
Talk about pre-existing conditions, Rick. What do you do in regards to pre-existing conditions?
So pre-existing is kind of a buzzword. We don't really use that in the life insurance arena, but it's more of the health insurance side. And because with everything going on with health insurance, it is becoming more of my vernacular. If somebody has severe respiratory issues, COPD, emphysema, heart ailments, they're taking heart medications, maybe that little nitro pill that they always have in their front pocket, or insulin-dependent diabetic, Crohn's disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, pretty much anything that you can fathom, I'm still going to be able to help. A lot of companies, some of these ailments are going to scare them.
How does somebody give you a buzz, Rick? I want to reach out to you. How do I get in touch with you?
So the easiest way, my direct office line is 832-463-1911. Or also email finalwishes, plural, finalwishestx@gmail.com.
Gmail. You still use a Gmail?
Well, I've got final wishes at rickdemko.com, but I'm afraid that people won't be able to spell my last name. So Gmail for me.
Probably can't because there's no C in Demko. And you did notice that when I spelled your name yesterday or the day before, whatever, on Facebook, the autocorrect
goes to demo.
Demo.
Yeah.
And I published your whole thing with Rick Demo. I didn't realize it. It had corrected itself. I did a few, but then you caught the last one.
It's okay, birthday boy.
Oh, okay. I'm forgiven because it's my birthday. So we said again, 832-463-1911, even to discuss plans and to figure out how someone can work with you. Who is the average person that calls you and wants to talk to you?
So recently I went through the last 1,000 policies that I wrote. And in doing so, I noticed a lot of trends. The average death benefit or case size was about $10,000. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't do certainly more than that. In fact, before I came in, I wrote another $4.5 million on a young couple. So it just depends on everyone's situation. But typically, folks aren't thinking about dying until they're getting older or they've been diagnosed with something. I'd rather get my hands on you while you're young and healthy because I can design plans that you don't have to pay forever. You can pay for a few years and then it's paid up. It's done. It can never be taken away, and certainly your rates are going to be better the younger and healthier you are.
Sure.
So it's never too late to be talking about this. If you're 95, I'm not going to be able to help you. I can still teach your family some things, but I want to help the family financially as well.
Sure. So, for instance, at the Chamber of Commerce, we have a great group of young chiropractors. Maybe you've talked to them already, and if not, then we need to sit down with them and figure out what's going on because they're out in the Champions area, just really close to you.
Okay.
And Peak Potential Family Chiropractic. So if you're listening, Dr. Zach, it's for you. So are they part of your arena yet? Have you talked to them at all?
I have not, but I did recently hear a chiropractor say that they were looking at trying to prevent folks from diabetes.
Okay.
And so I'm not exactly sure how that works, but if somebody's already to that stage, insulin-dependent diabetic, or maybe if they're just taking metformin, that's okay. Even if they had any complications from their diabetes, a kidney failure because of it, or whatever the case, I'm still going to be able to help, and we can custom design plans. I'm a budget guy. It's got to fit your budget. Otherwise, we'll scale it back until it does, or frankly, I'll just teach you some things and send you on your way. I'm going to leave you in better shape than I found you, I promise.
Okay, so these chiropractors, these people, there are 4 in total, and they're all under the age of 35. So they're young people for sure in terms of not only in life, but also in their careers and all. So if they don't have life insurance, or if they haven't talked to you, then we need to make sure that you get in front of a couple of these guys and maybe knock some sense into them if they're not already covered. So we love you, but come on, guys, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So we'll make sure we talk about that when the time comes. Something we wanted to talk about also, Rick, with you, because I know what you're doing, and I know that what you're doing is very effective, and that's networking. So when we come back from break, we'll talk a lot more about your networking skills and how to acquire those skills, and what are some recommendations you might have for young pups in our chamber. So we'll talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
And we're back. This is Dr. Carlos Sanchez. This is the Hispanic Chamber Connection radio program designed specifically for members of the Woodlands-Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but also the Vintage Park Hispanic Chamber, the Katy Hispanic Chamber, the Galleria, and the Heights Hispanic Chamber. So you're all part of the same family of chambers. We haven't been able to name the mothership yet, but the mothership will be something like the Texas Gulf Coast Hispanic Chamber of Chambers or something. We have to find the legal name that won't get us sued, because we've been through the ringer with a few names already with other chambers in town who don't necessarily like what we're doing and express it through nice lawsuits about our name. They can't do anything about other things, but they can and they have come after us for other reasons. So that just tells me that you've inspired me, other chambers. If you're listening, thank you, because it just gives me more energy and more fuel moving forward. Anyway, we're here with Rick Demko. Rick is with the Guardian Group, final wishes expert, life insurance expert, and also business expert. You have quite the reputation out there, Rick, just so you know.
That makes me nervous.
Well, let me explain. Some people know you as a very, very good networker, that you're basically willing to talk to anyone and network your way into groups and things like that. What's outstanding about that, which is the comment that I wanted you to express upon or to expand on, was the fact that you don't talk about you. You talk about other things. So tell us a little bit about your technique, and then I'll follow up with you asking you for a few key pointers that you can give the new young pups in this arena.
Sure. So I'll show you exactly how it's done. So I want to give a shout out to my parents who are listening at Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, and also to Dr. Alger, who practices here in Conroe. So Dr. Alger actually invented the orthodontic lights that my father used to use over his orthodontic chairs. So if he's listening, there's your shout out. It's always
again in a minute.
It's always been about connecting. I grew up in small business. I've been a small business owner on a couple different facades, and I always wanted to be a connector. And how you do that is trying to figure out what a perfect prospect is for somebody else, and then going out and finding it. And the reason why I like that approach, it's not really an approach. I think it's so much of my being that it just comes very natural to me. But I know that if I introduce somebody to Dr. Carlos, the one thing that you two have in common is me. So if I'm the one that makes the introduction, you're going to talk about wonderful things about me,
Always.
at least for the first couple minutes, and then that'll wear off, of course. But it's being a part of the right organizations, trying to find someone's perfect prospect. Maybe it fits you. Just in any way that you can, just providing value first before you start asking.
Okay, so you show up, big smile, you comb your hair, whatever. You go in there and you look for anyone. First person that gives you eye contact, you say, "Hi, how are you? I'm Rick. What do you do?" Like that?
So there's a lot of strategies behind this, and we don't have enough time to get into them.
Give me your straight so that the listeners can take something with them.
So two different routes you can go. You can either go towards someone who you think's a big influencer in the room and try to get buddy with them, or you could go the opposite route and find somebody who's standing off to the side. You could take either one of those types of people and still create value for them. The one that's being loud and is obviously a center of influence, why do you want to meet them? They're going to know more people, but you might be able to provide more value for the one who's being a little bit more of a recluse and standing off in the corner and doesn't know what to do. You're going to master your craft quicker when you're able to coach and educate other folks. So if you can get them into the fold and provide value for them, you're going to end up better at what you do.
Right. Okay. So and you also mentioned earlier that one of your main techniques or tools within your business now is just 100% networking.
100%. So in the final expense business, and even with the 150 or so agents, depending on the day, that I have around the country, they're very, very lead focused, going back to that advertising and marketing that we talked about. My personal book of business, I do none of that. Mine's 100% based on relationships, finding insurance professionals that can't write the types of policies that I do. Also, working with the families of clients that I already have, or going to something like a B&I group. I've been a Rotarian for 10 years. It's something that I believe in. Or chamber events, certainly.
Oh, thank you for finally plugging the chamber. Speaking of plugs, Rick, I wanted to ask you again if you would, because I want to videotape this. Would you, in 2 seconds, give us your plug again for the shout-outs that you just said? Go ahead.
So, again, a quick shout-out to my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad, since now it's a video. From the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, and also their dear friend, Dr. Alger, who certainly helped my dad in his practice with the lights over their orthodontic chairs, who practices here in Conroe, or used to. Hi, guys.
All right, so that silence you heard was Rick finalizing his shout-outs to some people, and we do want to respect the folks that are listening. If you are a member of this chamber and you would like to be a part of this program, please reach out to me. I'm happy to feature you so you can feature your business and talk a little bit about you and about the things you're doing, because this is how we show you that you matter and that we care about you. I mean, there's other ways, of course, but this one I think is very peculiar to our chamber. Other chambers do things that are similar. I just don't know that they do them the same way that we're doing them, because really I really appreciate that you're here today, Rick, and talking about not only your business, which is very interesting, but also other things, because you're very knowledgeable and you can teach a lot of people a lot of the things you know. But going back to your value proposition and sort of the thing that you're most well known for, the people you work best with, what would you say is the highest level thing that you provide to a family? Is it peace of mind? Do they feel more comfortable after talking to you? What would you say would be the biggest reason they would even call you?
So I got into this business on purpose.
On purpose.
And I think if you talk to a lot of folks that are in kind of the final expense area, they landed there because maybe their career wasn't going the way they thought it would.
Sure.
So it's a very interesting thing. So a lot of folks that do what I do don't stick around very long.
Okay.
They weren't good at what they did before. They didn't choose this business, it chose them. So I'm a little bit different. I do this because I really, truly do care. I decided that there had to be a better way. I saw too many people getting taken advantage of, and it's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I got 350 hugs last year.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
You count the hugs you get.
I absolutely do.
Sure.
I know the more hugs I get, the money just follows. And it's not about the money. It's just serving as many families as I possibly can. And I do that through education and making sure that on a really bad day, they've got somebody in their corner. Not just financially. The life insurance part, believe it or not, is easy. But also helping the family through that process, making sure that they have a plan, teaching some things about the laws and what to expect when a loved one passes away on a really bad day.
So, Rick, have you found that you pretty much, and you've said this earlier, but I want to make sure our listeners are aware, you can pretty much work with anyone?
I can work with anybody. From the age of 2 weeks old to the age of 85.
Okay.
So I towards the beginning of this year, I wrote an interesting case on a young lady in the third ward who was HIV positive. That's uninsurable for the vast majority of life insurance company. Not only was I able to help her, but she also had a son that was incarcerated.
Wow.
And I was able to write a plan on him. So that's kind of an extreme. If you're on oxygen, if you simply are diabetic and maybe you're a little heavier than the doctor would like and your BMI is a little off, a lot of insurance companies are going to be a little standoff about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and those just because you're diabetic doesn't mean you're going to die right away. Okay, just because you had cancer, maybe you're currently going through cancer, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to die right away.
Right.
So I can put you in plans that are going to be there no matter when you pass away.
Have you found any concerns about what's going on with the national sort of rhetoric that's going on right now with pre-existing conditions and all? Has that become a concern of your customers, your clients, the people that call you?
You know, if anything, it's helped me because it's. So I talk about these what if you kind of die types of plans. So life insurance is very simple. At its basic form, you pay a little check, so that way when you die, your family gets a big check. That's life insurance 101. And folks find that they're uninsurable they can't get health coverage. They're so worried about if they do die. Well, thankfully, there's also products that I'm able to utilize. What if you have a heart attack?
Sure.
What if you have a stroke? What if you become terminally ill? We can actually tap into some of those benefits before you die.
Wow.
And use those to pay off medical bills or start planning for your final arrangements.
And so a good time is any time, truly. The best time, obviously, is the young chiropractor, young bucks that we talked about who are just so healthy, it's crazy.
Sure.
But truly, a good time is any time.
The younger the younger and healthier, the better. Just yesterday, I wrote somebody, she had dementia, cirrhosis of the liver, as well as some other ailments. I won't get into it, but uninsurable for a lot of carriers. I wrote a great plan on her, no waiting period or anything like that, full coverage from the very first day. It fit the family's budget. And from there, I ended up taking care of the husband and wife, and they have 3 teenage children.
Wow.
I put plans on them as well, so when the kids, hopefully they'll be out of college at that point, but they don't have to pay for a tremendous amount of time. You don't have to pay this your entire life. You pay it for a couple years, and the plans cannot go away.
Oh, very good.
But if you're young and healthy, I can do that. Those, I call them the sexier types of plans.
Sure. With more bells and whistles.
We can do those plans. You give me more ability for some options when you're younger and healthier.
Very good.
If you're getting up there in age and you've got some things going on, we're going to be limited by some of the plans that we can do.
Sure. Very good. So we're talking with Rick Demko. He's with the Guardian Group. This is the Hispanic Chamber Connection live radio program. When we come back from break, we'll talk more about some really interesting things about Hispanic culture, and we'll talk more with Rick. So we'll be right back.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
And we're back. We're here with Rick Demko with the Guardian Group. This is Carlos Sanchez with the Hispanic Chamber Connection radio program. In this final segment of the show, we'd like to talk about different things, sort of recap what we've talked about today. Remember that tomorrow is a lunch in Conroe, so that is pretty much my recap. I want you that if you can, please show your support for the Chamber of Commerce. We have lunch at Chocolate Passion from 11:30 to 1 p.m. Then some of the more outstanding things we talked about today. Rick Demko is a life insurance expert and also a Final Wishes, I would say, consultant, if that's the word. I'm not really sure. He'll talk to you about things that you might not have ever thought about, or maybe you've thought about but have been a little bit concerned to really learn more about. And that's what's going to happen. What's going to happen when the inevitable does happen, and how can his agency, his company, help those that stay behind once you depart. So it's an interesting conversation, a great topic. I thought Rick is very, very knowledgeable. So for sure, if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make, it's okay to give him a buzz. It's 832-463-1911. You can give him a call and find and answer some of those questions you might have. So before we get back to everything, Rick, in a few sentences, tell us again then, what is your highest value to our members and to the people that are listening?
So the Guardian Group is a final expense agency. We've got agents all over the country, but really focusing on the funding and planning of final arrangements, helping the family through the process, not just funding your burial or cremation or paying stuff off, but helping the family through that process and making sure that the money from those plans actually goes to the pocket of your family instead of a salesperson at a funeral home.
Very good. Let me tell you something. Okay, so we're going to get into this section called Ask a Chicano. Chicano, like we've said, is someone who was born and raised in the States but lives in Conroe, who understands Hispanic culture. So we call them Chicanos. The name was made up and coined by a man by the name of Andy Glass. His wife is Becky Glass. Yeah. Becky is a member of our Chamber of Commerce. She's also an insurance agent, but she does other types. She does health insurance, commercial insurance. Right? That's her thing.
I think she's a multi-line agent. I think she can do just about anything.
Sorry, Becky. I'm just misrepresenting you, but yes, Rick, thank you for that save. Anyway, her husband is a wonderful supporter of our Chamber of Commerce. He actually donated the float we used at our St. Patrick's Day parade. So he's been very, very supportive of our chamber. Anyway, the topic I wanted to discuss with you was two, but let me give you one that I think goes right into what you've been talking about. It's very common that when people of first-generation Hispanics in this country, when someone dies in their family, they don't cremate the body. They put the body in its respective box, right? I guess there's no other word, and they ship them back home. Mm-hmm. So this one family back in Dallas had the father had some sort of accident at work, and so he passed, and he was shipped back to Mexico. And when he got there, they opened the box, and it was another guy.
No kidding.
Right? It was, I think, a lady or something. It was just an awful incident of all the expenses, everything they did to get him there, and somewhere along the line they switched the guy, just a whole other person. Right. So the responsibility, I mean, they had to call the government, they had to call the consulate, all these things they had to do, because the guy was, not the right person. They had everything already pre-arranged for the funeral, paid for in Mexico. Wrong guy. So, but what their problem was that they didn't have insurance. Everything was paid out of pocket. And to find and locate the right body was virtually impossible. Sure. Because nobody was responsible.
Normally I would say unbelievable, but unfortunately I've seen this sort of thing quite a bit. And it's once you're attuned to a topic like this, you end up seeing this stuff more and more, which is unfortunate.
So in that case, I know that they went through all, and the reason I know is because I was president of a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Irving, Texas, which is right in Dallas.
Sure.
And it was not a member, but it was someone that we knew who was asking for support. Like on this side, help me find my father type thing.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I had nothing, I didn't know what to do, you know. I do know that there were a lot of folks saying it wasn't their fault, you know, the funeral directors, people like that. So in essence, that's pretty much something that you've seen before then. It's not an uncommon thing outside of.
I wouldn't say it's common.
Right.
However, it's amazing some of the stories that you still hear. Not too long ago, there was a shooting in Dallas. Remember, there was a number of police officers
Sure.
that were shot by a sniper. What was so bad about that entire thing is the price gouging from funeral homes in that area.
Mm-hmm.
It's the market runs everything, so if they can charge, they will charge more.
Sure.
Which is unfortunate. And I'm very attuned to it. And just yesterday, I saw another story about a veteran who had to be displayed on basically a steel table because his family didn't want to pay $9,000 for him to be displayed in a casket.
Wow.
Which is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
He was a veteran, and the picture is gruesome. Not really gruesome, but it's very sad. I mean, he's displayed on a table. There's not even a pillow for his head to be rested on, and he's draped with a flag. It's not right.
Now, how can you guys help any of that? If you would have talked to the family beforehand, or what would have been your intervention that would have avoided something?
Usually, when somebody that's involved knows what they're doing, a lot of times funeral homes won't try to get away with some of the things
Sure.
that they typically would. There's some laws that I like to talk about. For instance, a funeral home can't refuse a casket that's purchased from somewhere else or charge a handling fee, which means you don't have to buy a casket from a funeral home.
I've seen that. You can buy it online. You can buy really inexpensive caskets.
I'm pretty sure that Costco is also one of the supporters of
Yes.
the chamber, and you
They
can
are.
buy a casket from Costco.
Right.
So just knowing that law can save a family thousands.
Say that again. Costco,
Costco,
right here in Conroe,
absolutely.
has caskets.
And the greatest all beef $1.50 hot dog ever.
The greatest all beef. Okay, $1.50 hot dog. There you go. So you have some great information. Maybe a little bit too much on behalf of Rick, but yes, for sure, casket. You can save money on your casket. You can save a lot of money on your insurance. Just talk to Rick. Give him a buzz, and let him answer your questions. It's 832-463-1911. So ask at Conroe. We said earlier, the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about, Rick. I know we're out of time almost, but here it goes. That's people disappearing. It happens to us a lot, and that somebody will say to you, "Yes, I'm buying. Yes, I'm buying," and then before you know it, they're gone. You can't find them anywhere. Have you found that to be common also with Americans? Just
With Americans,
in the general market,
I've
like
learned.
buyer's remorse almost.
Funny story about buyer's remorse. I probably 12 years ago, I bought a whole life $1 million insurance policy, and I had buyer's remorse. I kept it for 3 days and I canceled it.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you that people are people. They sometimes say they're going to do something and typically don't follow through.
Yeah, you just have no choice but to accept it and move on.
It's true.
So we've been talking to Rick Demko. Rick Demko is with the Guardian Group, Final Wishes insurance agency, and expert in life insurance. This is Dr. Carlos Sanchez. This is the Hispanic Chamber Connection. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you again next week. Gracias.
Thanks for checking out this podcast of Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. If you enjoyed this recording, make sure to check out our past shows online at irlonestar.com or their respective video or podcast formats on YouTube, Google Play, or iTunes. If you have any questions regarding the show, either it being about sponsorships or questions for the host, contact the station manager at dick@irlonestar.com or call the station at 936-647-3776. This show was recorded in downtown Conroe, Texas at the Lone Star Community Radio Studios, and Lone Star Community Radio reserves all rights to this recording and images.